On this special post-Thanksgiving episode of the Squared Circle Psychopath, we're back in the war room to decide who won this week's Wednesday night war between AEW Dynamite and NXT. My name is Michael Valenti. Joining me is Ralph Valenti. Ralph, let's talk about, I think, the one thing that people are talking about out of AEW Dynamite, and that is Taz choking out Cody Rhodes. Very good promo from Taz as he was talking about making the FTW Championship acknowledged in AEW. Cody Rhodes comes out, makes it personal by bringing up the fact that he is training Taz's son Hook, not Taz himself. Then Taz chokes him out, and Taz's son Hook actually walks out with Taz and the FTW Championship. What'd you think of this segment from Dynamite this week?
I thought this segment was very well done. I like the fact that Taz came out and there was the dynamic between him and Cody. Cody actually came across as very genuine in his position. You know, the fact you get to see Cody in the ring pretty much on a weekly basis, but you don't ever really see him in that backstage VP role where he's really kind of coming out and talking to guys about cutting the mic off and things like that. So I think that was certainly done very well. I was happy that Taz was able to hold his own on the mic yet again. And, you know, I think the biggest thing with this is it helps elevate that entire group, because not only is Cody already an established guy in AEW, but having Taz and the rest of Team Taz kind of feud with him, especially on this personal level, that's going to help people get a little more invested in the storyline and help build this a little bit better for their feud going forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. And afterwards, later on in the show, Ricky Starks cuts a pretty damn good promo himself. So, you know, that's what they need. They need storylines behind these guys so that people can get invested in them. And that's why, you know, I mean, you go with Cody Rhodes. I think he's probably the best storyteller in AEW right now. And I think this is, you know, a great way to get the FTW Championship some acknowledgement, as a lot of people say it's a meaningless title right now. I'm one of them. And maybe this leads to an FTW Championship match with Brian Cage and Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, and it's funny because, you know, I was actually just thinking about this and comparing it to the $1 Million belt, because as we were going through the whole retirement of the Undertaker, you know, shots back to Ted DiBiase introducing him. The guy really helps establish the title. You know, the $1 Million title was never really meant to be like a prestigious title that was viewed as like something that was going to be contested or anything like that. But the $1 Million Man made that title. Now, I don't think Brian Cage is necessarily at the point where he's going to go out there and cut these great promos and get himself over where the title will be established. But I think that this story, especially with Taz and Ricky Starks and the feud between the two groups, or just Cody himself, that will be enough to get people caring about this championship. And I'm interested to see where they go with this storyline.
I'm excited to see where it goes too. I'm expecting something next week to get more development on this with the Winter is Coming show. Probably build up more for either the following week on the 16th or the show before the year ends. They're probably going to do something big with those guys is what I'm going with. But something big happened on NXT as well, and that is the heel turn of Toni Storm. She turns heel on Ember Moon. We kind of saw this coming. This was kind of hinted between Ember Moon and Toni Storm. I think it was a matter of when, not if. But you could make the question, it was a little earlier than people expected, as Toni Storm sets up being part of Candice LeRae's War Games team with Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez.
Yeah, I'm sure you could probably make the case that it could have been a little bit early, but I mean, you really have 2 more weeks, or
less than 2 weeks. Yeah.
Less than 2 weeks now. But I mean, that was really kind of them, I think, starting to build towards this and starting to establish that group. And I think eventually what we're going to end up getting is what? So we have Io, Rhea Ripley, probably Ember Moon.
And Shotzi Blackheart's leading the team.
Yeah. You know, I'm okay with when it happened and how it happened. I actually thought it was done really well and executed well. And I'm actually really looking forward to that match.
Yeah, I'm too. I mean, the women's War Games match should be a very good one. A lot of people that haven't been in the War Games match will be making their first appearance with Shotzi Blackheart, Ember Moon, also Raquel Gonzalez. I think they're going to be big players in that War Games match and really get shine out of there. Plus, you got some veterans like Io Shirai, Candice LeRae, and of course, Rhea Ripley, who basically she pulls a Leonardo DiCaprio as the Wolf of Wall Street.
I'm not leaving.
She's not leaving NXT, as a lot of people speculated. I do think this is a short-term announcement. I think eventually she is going to the main roster, getting past War Games, but she does say she still has her eye on the NXT Championship.
It's going to be interesting to see if that actually plays a role in the outcome of the match, or if Rhea Ripley actually remains loyal to her team throughout the match, because, she made it very clear she's there for the NXT championship. She is on the same team as Io Shirai. So she went as far as to say, I respect Io, but we're not friends. Like we don't get along,
Right.
Things like that. So it makes you kind of wonder, is Rhea Ripley actually going to stand true to her team, or is she going to come out and betray her team at all? So just something to look for in that match, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Now we are starting to form some big matches here and make them official. One of them, we already knew it was happening. It's just a matter of getting the contract signed. Jon Moxley versus Kenny Omega is official. And on NXT, we had a War Games match announced. Leon Ruff, Johnny Gargano, and Damian Priest in a triple threat match for the North American Championship. Let's talk about Moxley and Omega first, Ralph.
Yep.
Omega finally cuts a promo coming off of the contract signing last week, and I thought was much better compared to what we've seen from Kenny Omega as of late. But then Jon Moxley comes out and shows him how you cut a promo on national television, and such a good promo. Made me hyped up for the match. You got the paradigm shift onto the belt. Kenny Omega selling that. I thought it was a very well done segment for a go-home segment for this match.
So how on NXT, Kevin Owens was giving Leon Ruff the pep talk about how you need to have some conviction and some fire behind what you're saying.
Yep.
That's the type of pep talk that I think Kevin Owens needs to give Kenny Omega, because while his promo was certainly a step in the right direction and a little bit better, I think a lot of people are starting to recognize and realize that he, to me, just does not seem confident in what he's doing out there. He's great in the ring, not taking any credit away from him there.
Right.
I think that he is very uncomfortable in the current situation, because in Japan, the promos that he was cutting, and the expectation was, the promos are much more laid back. People don't focus so much on the words. I guess sometimes it's not really relied upon that, what you say in a promo is supposed to carry the story, where that is very important here in the United States, where that literally is tying into the go home part of this. So Moxley is expected to hold his own in that promo, because they're not having any matches or tournaments or anything like that building up to this match. It's strictly just promos and segments that are supposed to get you invested in what's going to happen. And Kenny, to me, and I think other people probably agree, and some people may be okay with it, I just feel like he's very uncomfortable in what he's been doing as of late. I don't think that he's confident in the character that he's trying to portray. This is certainly the cleaner version of Kenny Omega in AEW, but it's not necessarily. And Moxley even touched on this. He said, you got to dig down and find the guy that people think you are. And I feel like Kenny right now is still kind of playing the part, but doesn't actually believe in what he's doing out there. To me, that's just how the way it comes across when I watch it.
Right. It's kind of like what Triple H always says about, you are playing wrestler. You don't want to be doing that. And Kenny Omega, I thought this week his backstage interview with Alex Marvez was much better, and he felt much more comfortable than we've seen in, weeks past with Kenny Omega in this new role. And I think it's going to eventually get better and better with more repetition in his promo game. That's what I think he just needs. I think he just needs repetition. Same thing for a guy like Leon Ruff. I think, for his first real promo on national television, it wasn't exactly the greatest thing. And then you have Kevin Owens kind of coaching him, which I thought was great. And him trying to time everything out. Oh yeah, you said Johnny Gargano's name and he's going to come out in 3, 2, 1. And of course it didn't come out exactly. Same thing with Damian Priest. And of course the thing with Regal at the end where he announces the match and pulls a little Teddy Long with the playa.
Yeah. I thought that segment was on NXT. I thought it was a little long. I thought that there were elements of it that were funny. I think that Leon Ruff is really playing that role, pretty good, because he's supposed to come across as the naive young wrestler that nobody actually believes should be in that role or really be the champion. And I was interested because I thought for sure Kevin Owens was going to have a bigger role than what he did on NXT. And it didn't really play out that way. But the show itself, the segment itself was okay. It had its moments.
Yeah, it did. And I don't know. Kevin Owens on commentary, I'm trying to think back. nothing really came out memorable in his commentary this week, I don't think. And I thought he would have been a huge part and be really, really good on commentary. And I think it fell flat with him. Honestly.
I thought for sure he was going to cost Kyle O'Reilly the match. I thought for sure that's the direction it was going to go. And I thought he was going to potentially get involved in the War Games match because, he was involved with it last year. He did go against the Undisputed Era. So I thought it'd only be fitting if, while he's there, maybe he gets involved, maybe he costs them the match, and that didn't happen either. So I don't know if they're going to follow up on it again this upcoming week, this upcoming episode of NXT, but I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Now you bring up the main event, so let's talk about it. This was a very physical main event on NXT, and also on AEW Dynamite, you had the tag team match with Pac and Rey Fenix going up against the Butcher and the Blade, which we'll talk about in a minute. But this main event on NXT was very physical, and this was just the ladder match, to see who gets the advantage. And that was physical, so it only makes me believe that the War Games match itself is going to be even more physical. And you bring up the person that interfered in this match. So Kyle O'Reilly was about to grab the briefcase to get Undisputed Era the advantage, just like every other time they have the advantage match, only to have someone knock him down. He was masked. He runs away. Not sure exactly who it was, but do you have any ideas who you think it could be that cost Kyle O'Reilly this match?
I don't think it's Pat McAfee. I think it's
small.
Exactly. I think it's Austin Theory, because we haven't seen him in a while. And I think that the way they're going to spin it is this. I think that they're going to say, he was obviously on a losing streak. Nobody was really taking him seriously. He did not look well in most of his outings that he's had on NXT leading up to the time that he walked away. When you look at the group as a whole, you can kind of see Pat McAfee trying to bring up their brand, so to speak, or raise them up to a certain level. And I think that's what we're going to see here. I think I think Austin Theory to me is a logical pick for this.
I think Austin Theory's more for that second ghost face that we got in NXT earlier in the night.
That could be it too. Yep.
That's what I think Austin Theory's going. I think the person in the mask is Tommaso Ciampa. That mask looks similar to some of his new entrance masks that he has. And they didn't really go close up on that mask, so it's hard to tell. And I think they did that with the intention of making people not realize that it was him and that mask. And I know he's doing his thing with Timothy Thatcher, which, by the way, that Thatcher-Kushida match was amazing. Technical clinic with those two, Kushida and Thatcher. But there's already history with the Undisputed Era and Tommaso Ciampa, obviously with the NXT Championship and Adam Cole. So that's where I think I'm going with it. Now, on AEW Dynamite, that main event, pretty decent tag team match. Eddie Kingston, again on commentary. And believe it or not, on national television, the Butcher and the Blade win a tag team match.
Very surprising.
Very surprising. But not only that, we get I think it's a face turn with Lance Archer as he comes out for the save after Kingston is beating down Pac and Rey Fenix.
Yeah, I think Archer, to me, he kind of reminds me of the aura or the approach that the Undertaker always could have had. He doesn't have to change a whole lot of who he is or much about his character for you to either root for him or boo him. It's subtle things that they can do or say that will influence the fans or the crowds to cheer or boo them. To me, Lance Archer, if this is a face turn, which, it seems like he's aligning himself with Death Triangle, I think it makes sense. I see him fitting in nicely with that group, and it's a way to actually get the guy on TV, which is something that they desperately need to do because, we talked about all the things that they're doing with guys in the group of Team Taz, some of the other guys that are on Dynamite. They find ways to get them involved, and it seems like for whatever reason, Archer's always been kind of like an afterthought. Like he'll have his prominent matches. He had his match with Cody. He has this feud now going on with Eddie Kingston. So it's a good way to actually get him involved in something where he's not just like, okay, well, we know he's the guy from New Japan that's got a lot of skill and a lot of talent. It's look, we're going to make sure that we're taking care of you, putting you on TV so people actually can care about you and get invested in you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And he came off so strong when he first came into AEW.
Yeah.
And Pac's another one that, obviously the pandemic kind of hurt his momentum with AEW, but now that he's back, he's on the forefront. Eddie Kingston, he's been great since he started. Archer being thrown into the mix just adds to that. And can you just imagine the back and forth promos that we're going to see once this feud really kicks into gear between Eddie Kingston and Jake the Snake Roberts?
Yeah. Yeah. Kingston has been probably one of the better guys on the mic in AEW. And, Jake Roberts has always been one of the psychological masters and promo guys of the wrestling industry. So that should definitely make for some good TV.
Yes, it should. Now, something that opened up AEW Dynamite I do want to address. John Silver versus Hangman Page. Pretty decent opening match, but I think it's more what happened after the match that we got to talk about. So Evil Uno with the rest of the Dark Order come into the ring, and he talks to Hangman Page, issuing another invitation to join the Dark Order, to the point where he even calls the Elite a cult. A lot of people say that the Dark Order is the cult, but when you keep saying that you want to leave, but they tell you can't leave, that's a cult. And that's what Evil Uno said. Do you see Hangman Page joining the Dark Order?
No, I don't. I really don't. I think that the Dark Order, to many people, still are not a group that most people take seriously. I think Brody Lee is a guy that people take seriously. The group itself, I still don't think they are taken very seriously at all. I can't see a guy like Hangman, who is one of the most over guys in the entire company, beloved by the fans, going and joining this group, because there's just so many things within the group itself that I think people question. Are they truly a group that you're supposed to take serious? When you look at Brody Lee, he's always a serious guy. He's always in serious positions where he's competing against guys like Cody, competing for the TNT championship. So you take him seriously. But then you have like John Silver out there doing his comedy shtick, which, it's fine. It's okay. It's good. A lot of people are into it. They're doing it on BTE. And then you have Anna Jay doing her thing. So I don't know if people actually take them seriously as a group or if they're just meant to be like a comedic thing. So
right.
I don't see Hangman Page joining this group. I don't see this being something that actually happens at all.
Right. Now, Brody Lee hasn't been on TV in quite some time. I believe since he lost the TNT title. Yeah. He has not been on television. I think he's injured, and that's the reason why. But I think taking him out, I think you have a more clearer direction of what the Dark Order is supposed to be on television. And you bring up Anna Jay. Anna Jay goes for the AEW Women's Championship. I thought it was a pretty solid match with Hikaru Shida. Obviously, this is a rematch from the beginning of the pandemic, which was actually one of the better matches that we've seen in the women's division between Anna Jay and Hikaru Shida that got many people noticed about Anna Jay. Great match here. But I think more people are talking about what happened afterwards here. And that is the return of Abadon, who scares the crap out of Hikaru Shida. And I think she kind of sold the fear of Abadon, which I think needed to be done. But also on NXT, we got a return there with the return of the Grizzled Young Veterans, who, will admit that NXT's tag team division is weak. AEW's women's division is weak. And I think both of them with these returns helps build some depth that is much needed in both divisions.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, Abadon in-ring wise, I guess that's secondary to the character itself, because I think that's something that's different that they can try to do. And, whether she ends up winning the championship or not, I think that Abadon being added in there is a character that actually people will be able to get interested or get behind, So
yeah,
she's always had a lot of buzz about her since, her debut. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Grizzled Young Veterans. Yeah. I mean, they definitely need some more serious tag teams, Fandango and
Tyler
Breeze just kind of weren't. They're good. They're fine in the ring, but the problem is you just can't really take them seriously. And when those are your tag team champions, it's kind of like, all right, well, how far can they really go with this? And they're trying to push Killian Dane and Drake Maverick. And again, that's more of a comedic thing. So that I think they need some more serious tag teams in there that people can get behind and take serious when it's time to have those more serious matches for the championship and stuff like that. Because not everything can be comedy. They have enough comedy tag teams. So having them back, I think, is actually a really good thing for them.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. And even the team that Grizzled Young Veterans attacked on NXT this week, Everrise, are kind of a comedic tag team as well. Yeah. So there definitely needs to be some more serious tag teams as opposed to Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan. So I will agree with you on that. I think Abadon what I keep saying over and over again with the women's division is they need more storyline and they need more characters.
Yeah.
Abadon is literally a character. You know, I know she, from what I've seen so far, can wrestle, but she's very young. I think she's only like 19 or 20 years old.
I thought I read that. Yeah. I think she's 19.
Yeah. So she hasn't been in the ring too long, but, you know, obviously looks good. Anna Jay, she's another one that has very few matches under her belt. I think before coming to AEW, she only had 4 matches total. This is what they need. They need more characters in that women's division. I don't think Abadon is going to take the title from Sheeta.
No.
I think that's more built towards Britt Baker, but this is what they need to do for the women's division. So because of Thanksgiving, there's no ratings yet, and those won't come out till Monday. So let's head to who won this week's Wednesday Night War, Ralph. I think both shows were very good. I think both of them were bounce back for AEW Dynamite and a good follow-up for NXT after their great show last week. This one I think was kind of hard, but I'm going to go with the slight edge to AEW Dynamite this week. I love the Taz segment. I love the Mox promo. I think the in-ring matches were very good. And I think every segment had meaning. Whereas NXT, I think there were a couple throwaway segments that weren't necessarily there that needed to be there just to fill the 2 hours. So I'm going to go with AEW Dynamite this week.
Yeah, and I'm going to go with NXT this week. I think that both shows were really good in progressing storylines or transitioning into new feuds. That was especially the case in AEW. I felt like, you know, whether it was the Inner Circle moving forward and potentially feuding with SCU, that's something that I think we're going to be able to look forward to. Yep. Hangman Page and Dark Order, that's something that, you know, is certainly fresh and new. We got Moxley and we got Omega, so that's something that, while it's not new, you know, they did what they needed to do to get people excited for their match. So I think AEW did fine in that respect. I'm going to give NXT the slight nod only because I felt like they were both pretty even until their main events. And I felt like NXT had the much better match, certainly the best match of both shows, in my opinion.
Yep.
And I think that they were even until that point, for me at least. So I'm going to give a nod to NXT this week.
All right, fair enough. And, you know, that's your opinion. My opinion, I think a lot of people will say AEW Dynamite, and I think a lot of people could say NXT. Let us know in the comments which show you thought was better. Don't forget to share us all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. And to catch up on our other AEW Dynamite versus NXT reviews, click the thumbnail on the screen, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Squared Circle Psychobabble.